The biggest problem we have is not necessarily that people are doing things wrong, is they're exploiting what's already there that can be exploited.
Yeah.
It's not illegal.
No.
So it's deemed as, well, if it's not illegal and we can make money out of it, then some people go, well, if it's not illegal, I'm happy with it. Over a long period of time, we're going to have to chip away at this to be able to get to a position where we are seen as a positive industry. And it relies on people doing the right thing because the negative stories hit so hard, right?
Hi and welcome to another episode of Orca Pods. Today I'm delighted to be joined with Luke Shannon-Little, the MD of Bishopsgate. Luke, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
And nice to see you as well. So let's crack on, bud.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about you, your journey, what's brought you to Bishopsgate.
Started off making a decision for university and did a history degree. So nothing relevant at all to what I do now. So did history, went travelling, and then, believe it or not, applied for the job from a Gumtree ad that said, was it a graduate trainee scheme? And so, you know, come out of uni, you need to get a good job.
Graduate trainee scheme for an umbrella company, sorry.
Right, so the previous place I worked was an umbrella company, a recruitment company, and a construction company. They had all three under one roof.
Okay.
And so, yeah, started working there. And I was supposed to move around each department, get this really good base of business knowledge and acumen. And that was 2019. So almost immediately as I joined, we had the financial crash. And so it went from, and it was already in a startup phase. It was probably second round of startup, just in the growth phase of that. And so joined and went very quickly into running a CSCS testing centre for construction people, doing a bit of recruitment, doing a bit of payroll, all inclusive. And then from that point onwards, just kind of grew into the role, really. We won a big client, or the commercial director at the time won a big client, and we onboarded them and worked out fairly quickly that they were quite admin heavy from a consultant point of view. And so I took on a lot of the communications with the consultants about their candidates, payroll, registering, all that kind of stuff. And then literally did every job from that point onwards in between there and the MD, and probably mixed with luck and timing and my own desire for career progression made it, you know, up the scale. So,
And that was 2019, did you say?
Started in 2019, yeah.
Oh, wow. So do you know what? I thought you'd been in the industry a lot longer. I mean, it's still 5 years.
2009. Sorry.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah.
2019.
Okay.
No, 2009
Yeah.
financial crash. So, so 2009. So, so did 11 years at the last place.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that brought you to Bishopsgate after that?
Yeah. So it took me to a point where I was MD of the last company. The owners had another business, a tech business, which they were really keen to progress and grow, which they're still doing now. And they wanted to sell the payroll company.
Okay.
And so we went through a process of meeting people and sale. And I just made a decision at that point that it was time for me to move. So fortunately, the Bishopsgate job was available, and I've known the guys that own Bishopsgate for a long time. And so, it was all kind of fitting really nicely at the time to move over.
It's funny, like hearing your journey, the amount of people that I've spoken to where we've almost sort of accidentally fallen into the umbrella industry. Yeah. It's like, I know, so I was the same.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to come out of London. I wanted to work like locally. There's an umbrella company, and I thought, do you know what? That sounds similar to what I've been doing.
Right.
And that was 2003.
Right.
And literally just fell into it, but loved it in the same way. And I think in that 11 years, well, like we all have, we've seen some change, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, it's changed hugely, and I think also my view on it's changed a lot, because when I started, it was very much a function of what we were doing as a whole business. The umbrella, the payroll bit was part of the construction guys and the recruitment guys needing to get paid.
Yeah.
And that's how I viewed it for quite a long time. And then as you move up and you start getting responsibilities for finding new clients, doing that, you realise, well, this is actually a really key part of our economy, you know? Having a temporary workforce for a lot of people is a huge part of how they operate their businesses. And then obviously legislation changes and there's constant things that we need to refresh and redesign and go to market with, and changes to employment statuses and all those kind of things. They all happen along the way, but actually the core of the business stays very similar. And you become more of a consultant to other businesses about how they operate. And that's what's really interesting about the job. Your partnerships with your clients.
And we're going to go slightly off topic here, but let me ask you this. Do you think, because I love what you've just said, and I think that umbrella payroll companies are really undervalued.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we talk to a lot of our partners with, or potential partners, clients, whatever terminology you want to use, is actually about being a strategic resource.
Yeah.
And the fact that, bringing donuts in, like what rebate you're going to pay. I think actually the trick is being missed in terms of what value can you actually add to my business. So hearing you say that same thing, is that something that you share? Do you think that there's a lot of, I don't want to label recruitment, but there's a lot of businesses that work alongside umbrella companies that probably don't view us with the importance that we should be viewed with?
Absolutely. I think we're seen as a good function for them. It's a really easy way to manage your workforce using a external provider to do that. And especially when you talk about umbrella and you're rolled up rates, and so you're saying, I know as a recruitment agency, I know going to my client and saying the rate I charge for this guy is £17 an hour. You already know your margin, you already know what you're making, you've got all of that in your arsenal when you go. So they see us as a resource, but probably from a commercial perspective.
Yeah.
And yes, I think definitely as a business, Bishopsgate certainly strive to make ourselves a part of those businesses. We offer training, everything from understanding what umbrella is, or CIS, or self-employment, or IR35, all those, to what checks they should be doing, what visas are acceptable, how people are trying to get round the visas, what the fines are for employing someone who shouldn't be employed. All those kind of things are an added value that we can all supply, and is more valuable to them than a box of donuts.
Yeah.
Is more valuable to them than pizzas on a Friday. But whether they see that or not, some do. Some really value us. Others aren't in it for that. They are in it for,
Do you think that mentality is changing? Because one of the questions I was going to ask you, basically just answered it, is like, what are your personally and Bishopsgate's core values? Like, how do you drive your business in terms of with your clients, which you've sort of alluded to? But from what you've said there, are you seeing that change where more and more businesses are starting to see the value in terms of what you do, what Bishopsgate do, what I guess other umbrella companies do as a whole?
Yeah, I think so. I think, and that's probably for a few reasons. One is I think the recruitment industry is changing a little bit. And I think more people who enter recruitment now and start their own businesses very much want successful businesses based on doing things operationally correctly, making the right money rather than good money, doing it the right way, building the right business. I think there has been a change to that. And I think as umbrella companies as a whole, and Bishopsgate specifically, we should be sitting in a chain, sometimes even with their end clients sitting in a chain and saying, this is the effect from placement to pay. This is the effect all the way down that we can have on this contractor who ultimately is making everyone money up the chain.
And I say this a lot, and I've said this in other episodes. It makes me chuckle. I had a contractor once say to me that if we as contractors, just for a month, went on strike, then we, i.e. the supply chain, us as umbrellas, the recruitment agents, the end client, would actually see the impact of just how valuable they are. So I fundamentally agree with what you're saying there. I think the importance of that. Is there sort of, with you and Bishopsgate, do you have a core service providing, or is it dependent on the client that you're partnering with and that you're servicing? Is there different caveats to what each of your clients may want and need?
It is a bit flexible. I mean, our mission for Bishopsgate is to be able to pay anybody in any business.
Right, okay.
So to sit behind any business and be able to run a payroll service for that business, whether that's paying someone's PAYE staff or the contractors or self-employed or managing limited companies, or that would be our aim, is to have the product set available to be able to do that, which means you can be more consultative with your clients because you don't have to go in and be very much like, oh, you should have, all these guys should be umbrella because I know that I make my margin off umbrella. You can go in and say, well, look, actually, where are you trying to get to with as a business? How do you want to get there? What's your growth plan? And how does your employment sit in that chain? Some businesses may not want any employees, and others will say, well, we want to get to having 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 employees because that's part of our growth plan and how our business structure operates. And it would be great. And we're starting to do it a little bit more, but it'd be great to be able to sit with clients at their creation stage and say, right, where do you want to be? And how do we set that up? And how do you make sure you do that compliantly so that you're not 10 years down the line and go, oh, we've got a massive problem here.
Do you think they actually care about that at the moment, though?
Some do. There'll always be the case. Some people will, some people won't, right? That will be simply, some people will be, how do I make as much money as I can and then sell this business? But then that's their business structure. So that will be part of how they grow their business. Some people really care about it.
Compliance?
Compliance, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen a big change, especially around ID, right to work, post-Brexit, all those kind of big change around how much people want to get that right.
So in terms of like compliance when it comes to payment models, have you seen a shift in that?
Yes. Yes, I have. Slow.
Right, I was going to say, yeah.
Slow. It's not like
apprehensive answering
not
that
like
one.
a huge, massive industry switch from one side to the other, but there's definitely a movement towards getting this right.
Your opinion about that? I've got I've got someone coming on in one of the next episodes, and I met them through they were in a mini umbrella model, so we're going to talk about the impact that had and stuff like that. Do you think? Because being honest, Luke, I in the last 2 years, for me, it's worse than it's ever been. There's a whole number of reasons for that. You've got obviously the economy, the interest, the cost of living, interest rates going absolutely off the Richter scale. I actually think it's getting worse.
Well, I mean, it may be because of the clients we choose to deal with potentially,
right,
and it may be the industries we work in. Primarily, a lot of what we do is in construction.
Okay,
and I think there is a shift in construction towards doing it properly.
Yep.
I think there's probably a new generation, a new wave coming into senior positions in construction and saying, I want to do this the right way. I want to set this up the right way. That's not to say we don't come across people and we're talking to them and say, how are you paying your workers at the moment? They say, I don't really know. Well, what do you mean you don't know? Well, we pay them through this company. And what do they charge? Nothing. What do you mean they charge nothing? Like, they charge you nothing or charge them nothing? No, there's no money. Well, how are they making their money then? I don't know. Well, then there's probably a question to be asked there, right?
Yeah.
If they're a business operating at a level that they will say they are, well, how are they making their money? But there's very simple questions that could get you drilled down right into the bottom of these non-compliant models or non-compliant people. Obviously, economic pressures always put pressure along the chain for someone to say, how can I make... Sometimes it's how can I survive, right? Sometimes it's how can I make more money? Sometimes it's how can I survive? How can we get through this? And so the choice of paying people through models where they might get more money is still out there, right?
And it becomes a lot easier and a lot more attractive, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I think the word you use there, survival, or the very existence of that business. I've seen it with one that we're trying to help at the moment, and they're like, we just wanted to do it for a year just to. Yeah. But what we've now happened is now we realise that we've been doing it for a year. Yeah. We almost can't go back. Yeah. And it's, I mean, they're on a precipice in terms of if you make the decision, or the reality is you're going to have to deal what will potentially come your way.
You're building up this legacy of problems that you just carry on going.
Yeah. I mean, we've had a client recently, I say a client, sorry, but someone that we tried to help with, and they've gone pop because of for 3 years they were in a I'll call it an evasion model, which is what it is. And HMRC literally walked through their door, shut the model down and said, you owe us this much money, and bang.
Can't pay it.
No. And, and I think it's almost, it's not just then contractors not getting paid. It's, people don't have jobs, literally marched out the door that morning. You talk about legacy, and I just think, because obviously you're very construction specific, I was keen to get your thoughts and your insights in that.
Yeah, I mean, for a long time, construction, they're massive utilising self-employed workforce.
Yeah.
Huge. And a lot of construction companies rely on it. And they should, because the nature of the work means they don't need people full-time all the time. You need people to come in with a specialist to do the specialist job, and then you don't need them again. So they should rely on a self-employed workforce. And obviously, a long time ago, the HMRC put in CIS so that they could claim some of that tax up front. But I think along with that, there's been a realisation that not everyone can be self-employed.
Yeah.
And then how do we pay those people who aren't self-employed? And IR35 had an impact on that as well. But a lot of the construction companies that we deal with now certainly want to do it the right way. And we've had conversations around that, rather than how do I make sure all these people are self-employed? It's how are we going to pay these people?
And I think that needs to be applauded. I mean, let's be honest, you go back 15 years ago, HMRC were always after the construction industry, rightly or wrongly.
Yeah.
But actually sitting here and thinking about that, has that almost had a beneficial consequence to a certain degree? Because then we're sitting here and we're talking, and I absolutely applaud that. And wanting to do it the right way means everyone is okay.
Yeah.
But I wonder, is there also, like I say, is that a consequence of, I remember, before CIS, and we're talking 2004, 2005, like it was almost perceived to be a little bit vindictive how heavily HMRC, I didn't understand it like I do now, so I was a bit wet behind the ears, but actually, could there be, if HMRC was sat here, could there then be an argument for them to say, we'll see, it works?
Yeah. Well, maybe. I think CIS had a huge impact on that,
agreed.
right? And I often wonder whether CIS or the structure of CIS would work in other industries, because it has worked well in construction. People now do understand that 20% is going into a pot, and I'll do my tax return and probably get a bit back because I'll submit some expenses and do that. So whether that will work in self-employment outside of construction or not, I don't know why it's never been tested, but obviously construction is such a big user of self-employment that it was worth them doing.
And I think what they got right was the simplicity of CIS. Like you quite rightly say, is you either 20%, 30%, or tell me the terminology, because as I need it right now, I've forgotten it, where you don't actually, you can deal with your tax yourself.
So you can be a sole trader.
Yeah.
So you can be a sole trader, you can be outside of CIS, non-CIS, it depends what you want to call it.
I thought there was a part though in CIS where you could provide a letter that says, HMRC have given me permission.
Oh, you have gross status.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so you can have gross status. We don't see many, to be honest.
Right, okay.
We don't see many. And when you talk to the guys now, a lot of them quite like that 20% is going aside. They see it as, well, last year I got £3,000 back in April and that paid for my summer holiday.
Yeah.
So I'll keep putting the 20% aside because it's like a little savings account for me. I'll submit my expenses. I'll get a little bit back because I will have overpaid. That's fine.
Yeah. But again, it's mentality.
Yeah.
And actually knowing I'm doing it right.
Yeah.
And again, like I say, I think you make a good point there as well. But again, is it just the complexities of our industry and the temporary labour market as a whole, which is why no one's had the thought process to think, actually, well, let's look at this industry. Can we implement not CIS per se, but something similarly?
Yeah.
But then is it then that you'd have all these industries that have got all their different payment models, if you like, or tax elements that, well, you did that 15 there, 20 there. But I think it's been a huge success.
Well, for the HMRC, they've got to sit there and think that they've collected much more money than they ever would have done before.
And they were doing before as well.
I mean, it's also assisted by the fact that the use of cash has pretty much disappeared, right? So you don't get cash jobs because no one has cash. So it has to go through some kind of system. So that is all of a benefit to running a compliant tax system for construction. Whether it would work somewhere else, you don't know. You could only do it on industries that had big self-employed use. And then we start getting to talk about status and bits and pieces like that, which will make a whole change to what you do.
Yeah, and which they're just not got an appetite for, period. Okay, I want to talk to you personally. We'll get back to towards the end of the episode, but one of the big key attractions of me and the gratitude of you being here for me was I wanted to talk to you about the Umbrella Leaders Association. Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong, and this is my memory. This was born during COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah, just as COVID and furlough happened.
So do you want to just give a brief explanation of what the Umbrella Leaders Association is?
So the Umbrella Leaders Association is meant primarily to be a networking, peer-to-peer society. It's not meant as a auditing service, a challenge on what you're doing. It's meant for like-minded people to come and have a chat and share some ideas about what's going on in the industry, to promote good practice, absolutely, but we're not policing it.
Yep.
So, it's just we want to have those conversations, have those discussions openly and honestly in a group of people that feel comfortable with saying, I'm doing it this way, or we should really think about this, or have you heard about this? That's what we want to do. That's what I wanted to do. It was born out of partly looking at recruitment and saying they've got all these little networking things. It's not all about the REC or APSCO or any of those, but they've got lots of little networking things, and Umbrella didn't have that. And I met people, competitors, who just wouldn't talk to me. And they'd be like, oh yeah, we're a competitor. And that was the end of the story. Oh, this can't be right. And I didn't have the more traditional upbringing in Umbrella, which is, going and working for one of the big guys, creating a business myself, knowing other people. I didn't really know anyone that well in the industry for a long time. And so through various different organisations, I started to have a group of 5 or 6 people that I talked to regularly. And then COVID, and then furlough, and we sat there and going, well, what does furlough mean for us? What are we going to do? And there was no legislation around it. There was no discussions around it. It was, if you're PAYE, this is how you do it. Well, what about if you're not traditionally PAYE working for a company? And so it started around that. And we started with the 5 or 6 of us, and then other people joined, and it's always been open for anyone to join, but they're coming to us. We're not going out to the market saying, do you want to come and join the Umbrella Leaders? It was, this is who we are. If you want to be a part of it, absolutely come, have a chat, get involved. And some people have joined and left and probably not seen much value in it. And some people have joined and got loads of value out of it, and relationships have been made outside of it, and people can talk to each other outside of it. So
it definitely helped me in terms of become familiar with other business owners, other people in the industry.
Yeah.
I can't emphasize, I think as individuals during COVID, to just have an hour, 2 hours where we could all engage, very much keep our minds relevant.
Yeah.
When, let's be honest, there wasn't much, our industry basically ground to a halt, didn't it? Like many, many others. But I think interestingly for me is what you managed to do was you managed to bring, didn't matter whether you're FCSA, whether you're professional passport, whether you were SafeRec, well, actually that didn't exist at the time, but it didn't matter who, whatever accreditation that you were, it gave everyone a safe platform.
Yeah.
And it's, I know that I've, of late, and actually we spoke about this before coming on the show, things have taken up, i.e. our industry at the moment is tough, so things take a backward step. But I like the fact that it got everyone talking.
Yeah.
And actually for that period of time, like I say, didn't matter where you sat or what side of the fence you sat on. I still think our industry suffers as a result of that. I don't think there's enough collaboration and enough sharing of ideas in our industry. And do you think that's still the case now? Or
there's still factions, and there's still people who are definitely sit on one side of the fence or the other, and that's fine. And as we know, just because you've got an accreditation doesn't mean you're operating compliantly.
Yeah.
in either sense of the form, having it or not having it.
Yeah.
And the ULA was never about, shall we tag on to one of these and do something, or shall we make sure everyone's got X, Y, or Z? It was about, it was about the knowledge share, right? It was about people coming in and saying, giving the FCSA opinion, giving the professional passport opinion, giving the independent opinion, giving the I am FCSA, but actually this is how we're going to do it for furlough, or this is how we're going to do it. And there was a lot of comfort in it, you're right. Those early days was a lot about comfort.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, many of us furloughed people that we would usually have these conversations with.
Yep.
How do we do this? What's the operational impact of this? And having an hour to go, I'm doing it this way, or someone saying, have you thought about the knock-on effect of this? Oh no, didn't actually think about that. That was really important. And it has lost some of its momentum, and hopefully we'll build that momentum back up again. We've got some suppliers to the industry who want to come and talk to that group, and it's a very unique group, I think, within the umbrella industry, because we're not bound by regulation. That's not why we're all in the same room at the same time.
Which is almost our kryptonite, isn't it, as an industry?
Yeah.
I think you're right. And that's why I loved it, is I don't care what anyone says, it's just my opinion. There's power struggles going on now. You've had the inception of technology. There seems to be auditing companies cropping up everywhere, which now begs the question, who's auditing the auditors? And I think, look, personally speaking, I think something like the ULA should exist in its entirety, where it brings delegations of everyone. There are a lot of smart people in our industry. There are a lot of real benefits and champions. And, the last 2.5, 3 years, again, whether people agree with this or not, my opinion is we've been bashed from pillar to post. I don't think we do enough to champion the actions of a few harm the many.
Yeah.
And, one of the reasons I wanted to set this podcast up and speak to people like you is to champion things like this, where, do you know what? You've been able to actually sort of cut through the politics of it all and say, do you know what? Let's sit here.
Have a chat.
Yeah, let's collaborate. Let's talk about ideas.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you and I are going to agree on everything, but surely opinions, like the more opinions we have, the more creative we can be in terms of how can we improve, I don't know, the reputations, how can we improve perception? And more than anything, how can we improve our knowledge as business owners, which in the early days, I remember sitting there like on a Thursday thinking like, oh yes, man, I've got the ULA meeting, going upstairs for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like I really, really did. It carried me through some weeks.
And there's been some great discussions in those meetings, and there is difference of opinion. And people share them, and so far, touch wood, everyone has been honest and open and allow people to give their opinion, and there's been disagreements about opinions and what's right and what's wrong and what we should be doing and not doing. But ultimately, I still believe everyone that's there is there because as an industry, we provide a really important function to the way the economy operates. And it's individual and it's tailored, but it has to be a part of how the UK operate because we rely on it so much. I mean, there's something like 4.5 million self-employed people. Now, they don't all run through umbrella companies, obviously, and they don't all need our services, but that's a big group of people that's often forgotten about, that we could be championing as contractor supporting companies.
And that's the shame of it, actually. And you know what? Like, I know I've been culpable for this in the past sometimes, but there's too much negative, isn't there?
Yeah.
They've done this.
There's a huge focus on the negative, which is easy, right? And it's easy for any industry, and recruiters get it, and car salesmen get it, and estate agents get it.
Bankers get it.
Yeah. There is what is done by a few is assumed is done by many, and therefore we all get tarred with the same brush. And I can understand it because some of the stuff that's happened in our industry is horrible. It's horrific. And the knock-on effect of that on contractors is absolutely outrageous, and people should be called out for that. But it doesn't mean we're all doing it.
Yeah.
And we are, as an industry, supplying functionality that helps a lot of people as well.
Yeah, and it's, you know, so at Orca, the umbrella side, we've really tried to go big on like getting testimonials.
Yeah.
And I've got to be honest, Luke, and I think this is a consequence of the last 2.5, 3 years, trying to get a testimonial from a contractor to say you've done a good job. Yeah. It is, honestly, we're finding it like, it's like getting blood from a stone.
Yeah. Well, if you look at Google reviews and all those kind of things, you only ever comment when something's bad, right? That's just nature of what you do. If you go to a hotel, you're very unlikely to go on afterwards and say, the stay was all right, it was fine, it was good, you know, the bed was comfortable. You go on and say, it was horrible. Yeah. The shower wasn't clean, the carpet wasn't hoovered, whatever. That's why you use Google. Everyone uses those reviews for have a negative impact. It is hard to get positive, but we do get them, right? You speak to contractors, I speak to contractors that say, oh, actually, this has really helped. You've explained this in a way that I actually understand how this works now, or, you know, you've allowed me to apply for a mortgage because I've had a contract with you for so long, or whatever it might be. But generally people don't come forwards with the positive as much as they do with the negative.
And I've got to be honest, like me personally, like if I order a pair of trainers, like what was the delivery like? I'll never do it. Yeah. And yet, like when it comes to my business, I'm like,
you want it back?
You bastard! Why have you not done that? Yeah. And it's like, well, Rob, like you don't do it either. So it's okay.
It's more of an effort to be positive than it is to be negative, because you're built up, you're ready to go, you're ready to say, oh, that was shit.
I think that's more of a society issue at the moment as well, isn't it? So I think, okay, so we how do we change that then? So we talk about, you know, and this is, I guess, the difficulty, but this is why, again, I wanted to really home in on the ULA, is because for the first time I actually thought, as a collective, as an industry, there was a body that was able to be positive. And I'm not trying to be derogatory to accreditation bodies, certification bodies. You're naturally going to champion what you do because you want other people to join it. There is a commercial element. Yeah. There was no commercial emphasis on this whatsoever. No. There was, don't be a dick. Yeah. Like, I like that. Like, and I know we had a conversation at the start, you know, how do we do something like that shines the positive light again? And I think, like, where we bring, who is now the main players, FCSA, Professional Passport, SafeRec, how do we bring, in your opinion, you know, it might be that you think we can't, but how do we bring those, like, representatives or delegations from those three entities and say, right, we're on a mission now to start repairing to a certain degree, which I think we've all got to it needs some repairing, but actually to start championing what we do and what we do well, which might add, we do a shit ton that is really, really, really good.
Yeah. I think it's swinging a tank around rather than a speedboat. So I think it's going to have to be, over a long period of time, we're going to have to chip away at this to be able to get to a position where this is, where we are seen as a positive industry. And it relies on people doing the right thing because the negative stories hit so hard, right? So will those three that you've mentioned there come together? I don't know. I would love to see them come together. I'd love to be in a room with them where we have open discussions around the industry as a whole, not specifically around what they're doing, but the industry as a whole, where we need to get to. You're right, it's commercially driven. So all those three, as they should, because they're businesses, will look at it in a commercial aspect. The ULA is not commercially driven, as you said. It is about networking. We could do a lot more collectively and probably through the ULA to promote what we do, but it will come down to advertising and marketing and spreading the word. And then that's the negative of the ULA, is that it's not commercially driven. So the money to do that, if we want money to do that, either needs to be collectively brought together, or we have to do it ourselves by saying, right, well, look, I've got a good news story here. Yeah. Let's share that.
Almost like a donation from us as members to say, okay,
whether we do campaigns or anything like that. And I've looked at it in the past, and look, myself, Bishopsgate, we financially have supported some of the ULA stuff that's needed to be supported, and there is more that could be done. And we are looking for suppliers to help us as well, suppliers that want to supply into umbrellas, companies, payroll companies. They can be a part of this as well, and we want them to be a part of it because they have an effect on the industry as well. So if we could get a collective to be able to do this, it's great. Where we do it, that's the next question, isn't it?
And I think
how are we going to impact those contractors? Because that's what we want to get to, the contractors, right?
And that's the key part. I think that in all of this is sometimes it gets forgotten who we should be doing this for. Yeah. Look, I have to be honest, as much it's like we're the biggest will in the world, and I have an absolute desire to love to see the three main players currently, FCSA, PP, SafeRec, sitting around a table. I don't see that happening.
No.
And I don't, because again, I'm not afraid to say this. I perceive they're competitors.
Yeah, of course.
And I, in the same way that you and I are.
Yeah.
And I don't think that, but you and I can still sit here and have a conversation.
Yeah.
We're having a podcast episode here where I want you to promote Bishopsgate. I want you to tell people the good things that you're doing, because I want our industry to be better.
Well, it'd be a great challenge for the industry to come together and have those three on stage, question and answer session, discussing what they think the industry is going to be, put in a HMRC representative and someone from the government, and let's actually listen to it all.
Why can't we do that?
Well, we should be able to do that.
And that's my point, is we can do this.
Yeah.
Why can't we do that?
And I think if you talk to them, they would all say, oh, we're open to do that. But whether we could actually create that is another question, right?
Okay. We've got now the inception of technology. We've had accreditations that have, do you know what? I don't know how long they've been going. What, 2008 is it? Maybe a bit before that, 06. Where do you sit now on the, and actually before I ask you this question so that people can't accuse me, we're currently investigating one of the main accreditations, so people know that this is not me trying to stir the pot. Where do you sit now on, because you've got FCSA and PP, haven't you?
Just FCSA.
Oh, so just FCSA.
Yeah.
Sorry. Where do you sit on that side now?
I think all those three have a value, significant value in our industry. They all service probably slightly different clients at the moment in terms of who their target audience is, or that's the way I see it anyway. We were Professional Passport. I think it's a great organisation. I think it really helps new businesses coming into, new umbrella companies coming in, to make sure that they've got the right contracts and practices in place. We joined the FCSA primarily for commercial reasons. We had a client who enforced it. It was a good time for us to join it. It's helped us promote Bishopsgate into an industry that we want to be in, step more into the recruitment world. And I think what SafeRec is doing with technology is really important to how this could be mass produced, as something could be put in place where there is security across a huge range. And we've spoken to SafeRec, and it's not right for us right now, but it's certainly not off the table in terms of where we're going. Each of those has a certain responsibility to the umbrella industry. And what worries me most about all of them is the cajoling of what's the best.
Yeah.
Because I think they provide three different functionalities. And for a long time, Professional Passport and FCSA were side by side, but had a different client base. Like I said, SafeRec, what they're doing is across the board. Now, the FCSA are also looking to do something similar to SafeRec.
Yep.
And use technology. And I think the use of technology is going to be huge going forwards. What we could do with technology, or what is happening with technology, can really weed out some of the poor practice.
Well, I think it already has, isn't it?
Well, it has,
to a certain degree. Yeah. Or has certainly exposed it.
And the data behind it is going to be key. Now, we've been supplying data to the HMRC for a long time, and that data has probably not been looked at in a way that it could be looked at to find poor practice. But then the HMRC needs the money and the resources to be able to do that, which clearly they don't have. So going forwards, I think each of them can still exist. But if there was a regulatory body across the top of us, that would change the way everyone operates. Are we going to get that? No time soon, in my opinion.
No, I agree.
And maybe one of them becomes a regulatory body. Maybe that's a natural progression for one of them with the government. I don't know. I love the technology behind SafeRec. I like the fact that the FCSA have seen that and want to do something similar, want to build their own payslip checking functionality because it makes sense.
Yeah,
it doesn't catch everyone. It never will. And a lot of what we do as an industry is here's our documentation to show we're doing everything right. And someone goes through and ticks it off. You've got all the documentation. The practice behind how you utilise that documentation is where we're always going to fall down.
And that's why I've never pursued accreditations.
Yeah.
Because they tell you how to behave.
Yeah.
But they don't check how you're behaving.
Yeah.
And it's principally the same as you can't murder anyone.
Yeah.
There is a law saying you can't commit murder, but people still commit murder. And I think to sort of marry it up, I see the values. And I think also what's important for the FCSA and professional passport that I very much want to say is up until the introduction of technology, what else was there for businesses to be measured on?
Yeah.
So I think that for that period of time, I can categorically understand why so many businesses wanted to get either the professional passport or the FCSA accreditation. Mine, what I've just said there is just a personal opinion. I was never a fan of, well, yeah, you can tell me how to behave, but then you're not going to check me. So that's why we always, until recently, steered away from it. Look, ours is completely the reason we're doing it as well is commercial. There is some value in terms of our practices. I will say that, but I think you're right. But then question if the FCSA are doing that, do I need to do that then? And this is a question. I already get that with SafeRec. Do you see? Yeah. And that's then because whether I did PP, whether I did SafeRec, whether I did the FCSA, all three of them come with a commercial outlay. Yeah. And I know we both know some umbrellas who've got all three. Like that's an extortionate amount of money to be paying. Yeah. And I think that's where I sort of funneling it back to what we said about how do we get the three of them, a government, HMRC, someone from government in a room. Like, okay, what value do you specifically add? What value do you specifically add? And at least then people can make a decision from it. But
and maybe it's up to us to say what value we actually want out of it.
Okay, yeah. Why do you say that?
Well, because we sit here and saying we're audited in this process and we've got that at the end of it. Or we've got a piece of technology that checks this and that's great and that tells our clients that we've been checked. But what do we actually want as an industry? What is our gold standard? And we mentioned it before. There's nothing that says what an umbrella company is.
Yeah.
And in fact, since I joined Bishopsgate, I keep wanting to refer to us as an employment services company or a payroll company. Umbrella is a product that we can sell and we operate, but it's not what we do. We're not an umbrella company. We're a payroll company. We're a contracting services company, whatever you want to call us, employment services. But what do we actually want as the gold standard? And are we telling anyone that? Or are we just accepting that someone else has decided we've got to have our contracts this way and you've got to do this? We should be working with people like the REC or government trade bodies or trade unions or whatever it might be to say, well, we are doing the tax collection for these companies. The HMRC is getting what they want because we are doing it properly and we're doing it via the calculations that have been asked of us. But what do we actually want to say? This is what we should be doing as a company. This is what we should be providing the contractors. It's what approach should we be taking as much as what boxes should we be ticking.
And I think, do you know what? I think there's been an element, certainly since COVID and the off-payroll reform of just indoctrination.
Yeah.
Right, do you know what? We're not going to question it. If you say it, we're going to do it. Yeah. Whether that be, again, FCSA, whether that be PP, whether that be SafeRec. It's almost like Sky, isn't it? Like you get Sky's put your bill up. Yeah. Oh, well, do you know what? I want to watch the football. Yeah. But like you said, well, what am I actually getting outside of that? Like, what am I actually really, I say paying for, but I think the principle is the same. I think that there's a lot of businesses now that, I think timing was a big issue with it all. We've spoken about the ULA elements there, but when the off-payroll reform actually came in, we were still knee-deep in COVID.
Yeah.
So businesses didn't have resource in their organisations at the time, or a lot of them didn't, to actually say, what's the real value this is going to add? Everyone's shitting their pants, rightly so, for the off-payroll reform. Businesses weren't ready. COVID hit, which then put it completely right field as opposed to left, where we should have, and a lot of businesses should have been going. And then this indoctrination is, in my opinion, has happened where we don't then question it. You then have, after that, now the inception of technology. And, I regularly speak to clients who, certainly in the last 6 months, have said to me, Rob, I actually haven't got a fucking clue what I should now, who I should be using, what I should be doing, because there's so many. Yeah. And when I say so many, I don't mean the three that the big three. Like you and I know about all the other auditing companies. Yeah. There's other smaller accreditations. Like there's a good pool of 15 or 20 that are all trying to make their mark. Yeah. But actually, it's almost becoming slightly detrimental, because now clients that you and I are going to sit down and speak to are like, I have not got a Scooby-Doo. Yeah. And it's that part that then it becomes problematic, because people are businesses are either saying, I'm just gonna stay doing what I'm doing. It's like, but is that the best thing for you? Is that the best thing for you? Ultimately, your contractors, your supply chain. And I think that for me is problematic. It's how many opinions can there be? Yeah,
well, the worst thing for any business or any industry is to say, well, that's the way we do it.
Yeah.
Right? Well, why do it? Well, that's the way we've always done it. So it's fine. It was worked for us before. We want to be in a position where we're, as companies, able to give the correct information to our clients, right? But they're also getting information from various different other places to say, well, this is what you need, this is what you don't need, this is what, and again, it comes down to the commercial element of it all. Is some people will use and utilize one product, and some people will use and utilize another, and there isn't much clarity. There isn't. It's not clear who, why, what, where, when you're supposed to do, and that could also spark the end of our industry, because people might just go, well, I'll just do PAYE.
Yep.
I'll do it in-house, PAYE, forget the rest of it because it's too challenging. I don't understand it.
Yep.
And there's no official guidance on it.
And I've seen some take that route and take that path. Yeah. And again, but it brings me back to, and I'm sitting here with a smile on my face, but just thinking, oh man, I'd love, let's just get them all on a stage. Yeah. Let's bring everyone in the industry there, right, and just a Q&A.
Yeah.
Okay, not why should we use you? I don't want to be as crass and as vulgar as that, but just so that there's you hear it from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, it's not why should we use it? It's what are you doing to whatever the next that'll follow? What are you doing to promote the industry? What are you doing to ensure that the contractor doesn't end up with a tax bill that he shouldn't have? What are you doing to ensure that people that need to utilise our services are getting the best advice? And I think it's hard, because it's very easy to say, well, just utilise our service and then you'll be fine. And that's not true of any compliance auditing. It's not true of any of it, because like you say, as soon as the door's shut and you've got the tick and the certificate, you can do whatever you want in the background. And
again, that's what I said earlier, is like, look, for me personally, as Rob Sharp, and for my business, the umbrella business, I don't just want to be measured on how I should behave. I don't, and I will never be. I want to prove how we are behaving. Yeah. And that's why we ultimately chose SafeRec. I've alluded earlier to why I've never gone down an accreditation route. And that's just my opinion. That is not said with any derogatory capacity to any accreditation. But, you know, our business motto is trust through transparency for Orca Pay Group.
Yeah.
Well, we can't have a motto like that and then not demonstrate and prove that. Yeah. But I think you're right. I think actually the key part on it is what are we doing to improve the industry?
Yeah.
And I think that's what ultimately, again, disappoints me slightly is that in those three businesses, let's just keep the top three for answering this. How many smart, real smart people are in it?
Yeah.
How are we not then seeing the benefit of us having this community almost, I don't want to say body because that's the last thing we need, but a community of people that are saying, okay, do you know what? We agree on this, we agree on this, we agree on this. Let's start actually promoting and benefit. So let me ask you this then, because I think this is quite a cool question. I asked Dre this, and if Luke Shannon-Little could change three things going forward, what would they be right now to improve the industry?
For the industry,
as well?
I think I'd try and make something. I'd try and make it so it's harder to start a business within this industry.
Okay.
So there was a minimum requirement of entry, whether that is having a certain amount of money available to you, or using specific contracts, or something needs to stop a really quick entry in, run through contractors, make a load of money, not pay your bills, go out the side.
Which happens a shit ton.
It happens a lot, and it's easy to, and it's not tracked. And so, you know, that's a quick way to make money within our industry. If that's what you wanted to do, if you were that way inclined, you could do that.
Hasn't it? But haven't our numbers, and I say our numbers as like umbrella payroll companies, since the off payroll reform, didn't we double or something ridiculous like that? Because people saw it as exactly what you've said. It was a very quick and easy way to make money. Didn't worry about compliance, didn't worry about what model I was running.
Yeah.
It was literally, I'm going to make a shit ton and then I'm going to leg it.
Absolutely. I think that is key.
Is that a government responsibility though?
Yeah, I think
it has to be.
I think so. I don't think anyone else could control it.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, if you start talking about that, that's a huge question, right?
Yeah.
Because how can you police that? How can you do? But that there definitely should be some barrier to entry. I guess there should be some formal checking. The biggest problem we have is not necessarily that people are doing things wrong, is they're exploiting what's already there that can be exploited. Yeah. It's not illegal. No. So it's deemed as, well, if it's not illegal and we can make money out of it, then some people go, well, if it's not illegal, I'm happy with it, right?
And there's an argument to say you're not doing anything. I mean, it becomes about morality, doesn't it?
Hugely.
But when you actually look at it on paper, like mini umbrella is not illegal.
No.
It's not. There is nothing there to say you cannot run a mini umbrella, which is why so many people do it.
Yeah.
But then, is this a bigger problem? And I mean, look, how long have we all been, or has the industry been asking for regulation? 15 years now. So the Conservatives were in for 14.
Yeah.
Labour are just coming in. They need to write laws specifically for the temporary labour market. Has any government got the appetite to do that?
That would be number 3, right? It would be a significant change in law at a top level that we all have to abide by.
Yeah.
And that is a huge challenge. We've discussed this, right? It's a huge challenge of where do you start, what's included, what's the knock-on effect of that, and then what are the effects on that on human rights and all other bits and pieces, employment law and legislations and all that. So it's huge. Does anyone have the appetite to do it? This Labour government seems to be talking about having an appetite to do it.
I don't think any of them do. I think once they get to the nuts and bolts, I think they realise that this is fucking enormous. It is absolutely, like you've said and like we've said, you're talking about having to rewrite laws to suit a specific body of individuals.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the Conservative government did nothing with it. unfortunately, politicians, as we all know, are brilliant at talking. They can talk the talk, but invariably, when it comes to something like this, as we've seen in 15 years, don't walk the walk. Yeah. And that's hugely problematic, because what it does is it then, look, we've been self-policing for that period of time as well. I'm sorry, I don't give a shit what anyone says. No one's going to convince me that that's worked. And I'm not saying, because it's still allowed a few. Yeah. I want to be very, very adamant about that. A few to do some pretty heinous things. Yeah. So if one does it, for me, self-policing doesn't work.
Yeah, agreed.
Just my opinion.
Yeah, agreed. It doesn't. It hasn't worked because of the way we've seen certain things happen. It has not worked.
But that I know. So what does it leave us with? If government is not going to do anything, what does it leave us with? It leaves us with the same. Yeah. And we've gone way past the definition of insanity, and we are slap bang in the pool of stupidity from a government standpoint.
All we can do individually is try and do better ourselves. That doesn't allow for other people who want to. And like any industry, if there's a gap, someone's going to exploit that gap. Yep. Right? That's going to happen. Will the government have the desire and the teeth to do anything? Who knows? But it's not a vote winner. It's not something you can show as an impact. It doesn't give you good marketing. It doesn't give you good sound bites. It's a piece of gritty administrational legislation that will take a long time and a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, I remember emailing you yesterday saying, I'm going to ask you something about the King's speech, but it was more what wasn't in it than what was in it. And, I think that's just an absolute, prime, yet again, example of just where we are and where we remain, which is, there was something about the app levy and a couple of other things. But again, the nuts and bolts, nothing. No. Just empty.
No, and we're talking about the majority of the stuff we talk about when we talk about employment, we're talking about normal PAYE employment. Yeah. Right? Normal PAYE employment that you look at and you say, well, everything they've said there, as an employee, looks great. As an employee, you're thinking, absolutely, that ticks all my boxes. As an employer, you worry about the individuals that are going to exploit that. So you're like, wow, sickness from day one. Someone's going to join my business and be sick straight away. That's what you worry about, the individuals. But there's nothing in there, as nothing with COVID legislation, nothing in there about the temporary workforce, the self-employed workforce. It's a big grey area that people gloss over, and maybe they do gloss over it time and time again because it is such a big challenge that it's not worth getting your feet muddy on.
Well, it's problematic, and I say this with absolutely no knowledge of this at all. This is me surmising an opinion, but also from a government standpoint, I perceive them to think, well, there are far bigger things that we need to fix now than looking at this.
I'm sure there is. And on the flip side of it as well, I suppose you're looking at it going, well, they collect an awful lot of money. These businesses collect an awful lot of tax and national insurance from us. So would we want to challenge that and break something that would be detrimental to its collection of money?
Good point, actually. But so both the Conservatives and Labour were talking about in their manifestos that they were going to attack evasion, for example, and they were going to make an additional 5 billion. They're very wrong on the number. It's way, way higher if they did it properly. But, and I actually think that was quite telling, because what they didn't do was say, right, we're going after avoidance models. I think with avoidance and evasion, that encapsulates a whole wealth of potential avenues. But would it not that we have technology now? Would technology not give them a large ability or a much greater ability to say, why don't you go and buy one of them? Why don't the HMRC go and buy one of the technology platforms at the moment that can audit pay slips, that checks the RTIs, that checks that payments to HMRC are being made? which it currently does in the industry at the moment, why don't you go and buy one of them technology because it can be, like you said, it can be used. It's not just for umbrella companies.
No.
Or it's for every single payroll company, whether you're in the temporary labour market, whether you're a full-time member of staff. You know, it's my business and I pay myself as an employee. I still audit my payslip.
Yeah, I mean, technology and data will be the two major things that allow us to put something in place within this industry that gives the authority to the contractor to check what they're getting is correct. Yeah. If you can go on an HMRC website, upload your payslip, and it says your maths isn't right here. This does not work. Or why have you been charged this? It opens up a whole range of tax codes questions and all kinds of bits and pieces around the knowledge the individual would have to understand that payslip. But that's not hard. That can be done with online videos and all kinds of bits and pieces. So tech and data is going to be key to how this industry progresses. I mean, the HMRC could probably just as easily spend money to build something themselves.
And that's what they'll do, is they'll go and waste an absolute shit ton of taxpayer money when they could go and buy one that, I see what you said there about like videos and stuff like there's stuff that already works.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We saw it with the CES tool, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they've gone and built something to say, look, you check through here and we'll tell you whether you're inside or outside payroll. And then it's gone to court and they said, yeah, ignore that. Ignore that. It doesn't work properly. Even the HMRC are saying it doesn't work properly. Right. And then other people have gone and built stuff that works and puts you in a position where you can go, I trust this document to say that I'm inside R35 or outside. And it should be the same. I've put my payslip in here and it says it's wrong. And I've gone to my employer and they said it's not wrong. So now I've gone to whoever else to get that checked. And that's going to be the thing that wins is data and tech.
And this is where, for me, it circles back to government, because we've talked a lot about improvement, collective improvement, but it always seems that it gets back to the buck stopping with them.
Someone has to have the authority, right?
Just to say, like, do you know what? Like, we don't want to look at this. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that 4.5 million self-employed or a temporary labour market, I'll call it, we're going to buy something that at least means that they can go and check, am I being paid? Are you being paid? Are they being paid correctly? That would be a lot cheaper than developing it.
Yeah.
It would be a lot cheaper than obviously having to go and change laws and stuff like that, which they still need to do, and I think and want them to do. But in terms of giving the dog a bone a little bit, you know, that isn't that isn't a difficult thing to do. But there seems to be this complete lack of desire to have a crossover with public and private elements when it comes to government or, you know, like, and you don't see it in other places.
No.
And it's that's what I guess is what's quite frustrating is if it's already there, buy it.
Yes. Well, then
you're going to increase the coffers anyway.
Yeah, and the easy solution, if we're not talking about changing laws, is to put it in the hands of the contractor and say, the first cab off the rank here is that we're going to give you the ability to own the information and to understand the information. And that will lead to questions and employment tribunals and bits and pieces, which then may change the law. But that's the easiest thing to do. Yeah. Before we change the law, let's give the individual, the contractor, the ability to go and say, I don't think I'm getting paid correctly. Here's my pay slip, or here's 10 pay slips, or whatever. Upload them, and the technology say, yeah, there's an issue here.
And mate, what that means as well is that if there is, because HMRC would in essence own it as well, there is a road that goes straight down there where you can tell them.
Yeah.
And then what in turn that does is it also gives HMRC the ability to see, okay, right, you're on our radar. Well, these guys aren't doing it right.
We've suddenly got teeth to do an investigation with.
And there you go. Yeah. So it's a double win because it's also not only are you looking after the best interest of the individual first, which I love more than anything else, they come first. You've said that. You've given them control, but you're absolutely right. You're then giving them actual ammunition to say, these guys are evidently not doing it right, or these guys are just bad players, like, we're coming after you. Yeah. Best thing for those of us that want to do it properly, off your fuck. And now the industry is starting to clean itself up. It's almost like I want to get a lamp now and just rub it with 3 wishes. And because in hindsight, me and you talking about that, the reality of that happening. But I honestly, I still believe it's that easy. It is that genuinely that easy. As taxpayers, I would give them permission to use any money that I had paid for my tax to go and do that.
Yeah.
I'm sure 4.5 million people in the temporary labour market would do the same.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm conscious we're going to be coming to the end of the show soon. So wanted to, what do you think the biggest challenges we face as an industry are at the moment?
The biggest challenges, it's probably the stuff we've touched on, in all honesty. I think one of the biggest challenges is people understanding our industry. And we've talked about promotion of what we do and the positives of what we do. I think that's a challenge we could overcome as an industry fairly quickly. Understanding where we sit in the chain and what we do and why we do it. But the biggest challenge is going to be weeding out those bad influences, and making sure that we're not doing that. Until the point in which someone else polices us, we have to self-police a lot better than we are. And whether that's through industry bodies or ourselves, it's got to be done the right way. And there's people out there trying to support us to do it. And I think as an industry, instead of being afraid of those people, and instead of cutting those people off and saying there's a reason behind what they're doing, is maybe listening to them a little bit more and understanding a little bit more of what they're trying to get out and saying, okay, I understand that you are not happy with this practice within the industry. Well, is it a practice that should be okay because it's fine and no one's getting hurt and there's taxes going the right way? Or is it a practice that we should be going, well, we don't do that. That's not what we want. It's getting rid of that fear around what we're doing and promoting what we're doing as a good thing. There's so many challenges, but it all comes down to the same thing, which is those few that want to do it wrong are going to have a massive negative effect on the rest of us.
And I think that's where the collaboration part needs to come in. Like I've been saying it, people like you start raving mad, maybe, but surely we're stronger together.
Yeah.
And we. Okay, let me ask, do you think that, now I know some are going to be difficult, but do you think a lot of the challenges we face are actually a lot simpler to overcome than we may all believe if we had strength in numbers to sit down and say, right, no more of this shit, this is how it's going to be done?
Yeah, most probably. Probably if we're all in a room and we all agree to the correct practice, as long as it's implemented by the people in the room.
But then how easy would, and this is what I mean about having delegations, to say, okay, do you know what? Like, I've got no qualms dueling you when me and you go into a recruitment agency.
Yeah.
May the best man win.
Yeah.
But actually, when you and I go into that recruitment agency, what they're going to get is a uniform opinion of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that this is the way it should be done.
Yeah.
And this is the way it will be done.
One of the lovely things about our industry, which is also one of the most infuriating things about our industry, is trying to find a USP should be really hard, because the nuts and bolts of what we do should be exactly the same.
Yeah.
And pay slips may be pennies different depending on rounding and software and all those kind of things. But essentially, it all comes down to service. How good can service can be? And if an agency, and we're sitting in the agency, and the third person in the agency, the third person as an umbrella company, third company comes in and says, yeah, but it's great, but I can make sure all your guys take home 70% of their wages, 80% of their wages, 90% of their wages. Oh, don't worry about that bit. We'll do that bit for you. We want to be in a position where the agency goes, well, that's not right.
Yep.
And that again comes down to who's talking to these agencies, what information are we giving them? But you're right. We should go and sell the exact same product, and then our services will differ dependent on how much we charge, or what we think is our unique selling point, or what we add on as a service, or what we can offer as alongside of it. But in actual fact, the point of taking money, processing it, and paying it should all be exactly the same.
Do you know what? You've just made me want to say something about USPs. What's actually happened as a result of it not being that uniform approach is now USPs are you get your holiday pay paid, or we don't charge you an admin fee for your pension, or the employer's saving that we make on a pension, we give you.
Yeah.
Like, we've actually brought USPs out that, in my personal, like, it's detritus that that's what we're using as USPs and I appreciate people's opinions are different, morality, et cetera, some things you can do, but they're actually the industry USPs.
Well, I mean, that should be the norm, right? We should not be talking about those.
That's what I mean. Yeah. But that's what my point is that actually that's what I'm saying, you and I, for the purpose of you and I sat here, but that's what we're going out and saying, right, here's my USP.
It's really frustrating when I see on a competitor's website, we pay holiday pay.
Yeah.
Like it's abnormal that these people aren't getting their holiday pay.
But it's a consequence of what has been the reality,
Absolutely.
Which is that lots of people didn't. There was lots of processes that were able to exploit that, and therefore businesses retain it. And I'm with you. Like, when I see that, or I go in after someone has been in, like, earlier in that week, like, this is the USPs, and it's like, I know why that's your USP. A lot of them are similar to mine. Yeah. But I'm with you. I loathe the fact that that's the USP. Yeah. Our USP should be like you say, you get an individual account manager, will ensure that your money's there before you wake up on a Friday morning. Yeah. Like, if it's our error, do you know what? We'll waive our margin for that week. Yeah.
Not that you're allowed your statutory requirements.
That's what I mean. Yeah, like, that for me, because, and then it becomes about service. Biggest of all, then it becomes about, like, you start regaining trust. Like, businesses are looked at and judged on exactly what any other business is as well. Yeah. Is like reputation.
Absolutely.
And I think when I first came into this industry, and probably you, I think the legacy, in fact, legacy for me, I just think is literally, it's gone straight down. It's how much money for some. I'm going to do everything I can, morally or immorally, in some instances, criminally, to make as much money as I can.
Where are the angles? What angles can I work on this?
Yeah, where can I exploit? Where can I exploit? Where can I exploit? And again, to repeat, that is literally, we're talking about on one hand. Yeah. There's 1,000 of us, but it is a bit of a punch in the gut every time you see that. And I think I've got to be honest, sitting here and speaking to you, and I think like bringing it back to the ULA, I think, and this is my opinion to you, to get that on a much broader level, I think can only be and would only be a benefit.
Yeah.
So before we sort of sign off here, obviously we spoke at the beginning about Bishopsgate. Where can recruitment agencies, anyone in the supply chain, contractors who are listening to this, where can they find Bishopsgate? So
website is bishopsgatepay.co.uk or LinkedIn are the two major, easiest ways to find us. Follow the Fleur, hashtag follow the Fleur is our hashtag for our Fleur de Lis. Yeah, which I absolutely love. I love the Fleur, love the branding. So yeah, please have a look. We are definitely a business that believes that the contractor comes first, and what we're doing is for the contractor, and we will challenge the recruitment agencies based on that, and what is this beneficial to the contractor. And we do have the understanding, and we're quite open about the understanding, that the contractor is the individual that's paying us to do our job, so we need to promote them and be their sidekick in this.
Mate, that's massive. Listen, I also want to say, first and foremost, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely, enjoyed it.
And secondly, like, you, genuinely one of the nicest people that I know. I'm going to say in this industry, I've got the pleasure of knowing you as well, and I hands down mean that. You speak with integrity, honesty, and it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invite. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no worries.
Absolutely.
So thank you for joining us. As always, please follow us on Apple, YouTube and Spotify, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Many thanks.